My name is Natalie Carrington. I'm 37 years old, and last Christmas Eve I walked out of my family's life carrying only an apron and a secret they'd been too blind to notice. Picture this. You're standing in your mother's kitchen, flour on your hands, while 25 guests laugh in the next room. Your mother walks in, glances at the empty stove and says with a smirk, "It's only 25 people, Natalie. Why haven't you started cooking?" That was me on December 23, 2024. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I simply smiled, untied my apron, and booked a one-way ticket to Miami, leaving behind a cold kitchen and a Christmas dinner that would never be cooked. What my family didn't know was that for 12 years I'd been running a $4 million company they'd never bothered to ask about. If you're watching this, please subscribe and drop your name and time zone in the comments. I've learned that so many of us carry invisible labor inside our own families. I'd love to know where you're listening from. Now let me take you back to Christmas 2009, the first year I became invisible. I was 22, fresh out of college with a communications degree from Georgia State and zero job prospects. The economy had just tanked, and I was back in my childhood bedroom in Atlanta, sending resumes into the void. My parents' house smelled like pine needles and cinnamon. Mom, Vivian Carrington, had decorated every corner with garlands, candles, and porcelain angels. 15 guests were expected. Aunts, uncles, cousins, and a few of my father's business associates. "Natalie, you're handling the meal," Vivian announced while arranging flowers. She didn't ask, she informed. I looked up from my laptop. "The whole dinner? For 15 people? Your sister Olivia has finals to study for. She can't be distracted." Olivia was lounging on the couch, scrolling her phone, definitely not studying. "I have job applications. Job applications can wait. This is family. Family comes first." That was the first sign. Olivia got exemptions, I got assignments. I spent the next 2 days roasting a 12-pound turkey, making mashed potatoes from scratch, preparing green bean casserole, cranberry sauce, dinner rolls, and 2 pies. I set the table, polished the silverware, arranged the centerpiece. When guests arrived on Christmas Eve, I was still in the kitchen, wearing an apron stained with gravy. My father, Edward Carrington, stood in the living room with a glass of scotch, introducing Olivia to his business partner, Harold Whitfield. "This is my youngest. She's studying marketing at UGA. Going to take over the company someday." Harold shook Olivia's hand warmly. I walked past them carrying a platter of appetizers. Dad glanced at me, then turned back to Harold without a word. That was the second sign. Olivia was introduced as the future, I was invisible. Harold's wife Patricia picked up a stuffed mushroom. "These are incredible. Who made them?" "That's just Natalie," Mom said, waving her hand dismissively. "She has time for cooking. No real job yet." Patricia gave me a sympathetic look, but I was already retreating to the kitchen. That pattern repeated every holiday for the next 15 years. Thanksgiving, Christmas, Easter, anniversary parties, birthdays, I was always in the kitchen or cleaning up afterwards. Olivia was always at the table, charming guests being showcased. By 2012 I'd started my own event planning business. I called it Epic Events. I was good at coordinating logistics, managing vendors, creating experiences, skills I'd learned in my parents' kitchen, ironically enough. But when I mentioned it to Mom, she barely looked up from her magazine. "Event planning? Like birthday parties for children?" "Corporate events, actually. Product launches, galas, conferences." "That's nice, dear. Can you pick up the dry cleaning on your way home?" She never asked about it again. Neither did Dad. Neither did Olivia. So I stopped talking about it. For 12 years I built epic events in silence. I landed my first major client in 2014, a tech startup that paid me $8,500 to organize their launch party. By 2018 I had 5 employees and a small office in Buckhead. By 2022 I was managing events for Fortune 500 companies. But when I visited my parents, I still wore jeans and a plain sweater. I drove my old Honda instead of my new Audi. I never mentioned the 23 employees on my payroll, or the $4.2 million in revenue we generated in 2024. Why? Because they never asked and I was tired of offering information that would be dismissed. Last Thanksgiving, November 2024, was particularly humiliating. I just closed a deal with a major hotel chain worth $600,000. I was exhausted but quietly proud. I walked into my parents' house, and Mom handed me an apron. The turkey needs basting every 30 minutes. I made a schedule. 23 employees reported to me. I negotiated contracts with CEOs. I'd been profiled in 3 industry publications, and my mother handed me a basting schedule. I took the apron. I basted the turkey. I served dinner to 18 people while Olivia talked about her stressful job as marketing director at Dad's company, a position she'd been handed, not earned. Revenue is up 12% this year, Dad said proudly. I could have mentioned that my company's revenue was up 31%, but what was the point? They'd find a way to minimize it. They always did. After dinner, while I was elbows deep in dishwater, I made a decision. This would be my last holiday as the family servant. 2 weeks later, on December 22, 2024, I sat in my corner office at Epic Events, watching snow drift past the floor-to-ceiling windows. The Atlanta skyline glittered in the winter sun, and my desk was covered with vendor contracts, seating charts, and a half-finished cappuccino. Julian Cross, my CFO and closest friend, knocked on the glass door. He was 51, silver-haired, and had the calm demeanor of someone who'd seen every crisis and survived them all. He'd mentored me since 2015, back when Epic was just me and a laptop. "You need to see this," he said, sliding his tablet across my desk. An email from Miranda Sterling, CEO of Sterling Hospitality Group, a Miami-based real estate and hospitality conglomerate worth nearly $4 billion. Subject: Exclusive Event Partnership, 2025. Sterling wanted to sign an exclusive contract with Epic Events for all their corporate functions, product launches, client dinners, investor galas, for the entire year. They'd already reviewed our portfolio, spoken to our references, and conducted due diligence. The proposed contract value: $2.5 million. "This is real." My voice came out steadier than I felt. Julian nodded. "I called their legal team. It's real. But there's a catch." There was always a catch. "Miranda Sterling wants to meet you in person before signing. She doesn't do business with people she hasn't looked in the eye." The meeting is scheduled for December 24th, 11 a.m. at their headquarters in Miami. Christmas Eve. "Can we reschedule?" I asked. "Miranda is leaving for Switzerland on the 26th. If we don't sign by the 24th, they're moving to their second choice. Lux Affairs has been pitching them for months." Lux Affairs was my biggest competitor. They'd been trying to poach my clients all year. Julian leaned forward. "Natalie, this isn't just a contract. It's a statement. Meridian's endorsement means referrals to their partners, their investors, their entire network. It means expansion into the Florida market. It means Epic Events becoming a national name. And if we lose this to Lux Affairs, the industry will notice." Then he pulled up another email. "Miranda mentioned your Forbes feature." I scrolled down. There it was, a line that made my breath catch. "I was impressed by your profile in Forbes's 30 under 40 list. Your approach to sustainable event design aligns with our values. I look forward to meeting the woman behind Epic Events." The Forbes article had come out in October. I'd been interviewed for 2 hours, photographed in my office, quoted extensively about innovation in the event industry. The piece called me a quiet force reshaping corporate gatherings. I'd never shown it to my family. What would be the point? Mom would find something to criticize. Dad would compare my revenue to his. Olivia would roll her eyes. But Miranda Sterling had read it. Miranda Sterling was impressed. "Book my flight," I said. Julian was already typing. "You leave tomorrow evening, December 23rd, 8:45 p.m., arriving Miami around 1:30 a.m. hotel at the Fontainebleau. Meeting at 11 a.m. sharp." I nodded, feeling the familiar mix of excitement and anxiety that came before every big deal. Then my phone buzzed. A text from Mom. "Call me. Important." I stared at those 3 words. In my experience, important from my mother meant one of 2 things. Someone was sick, or she needed something from me. Given that I hadn't heard about any illness, option 2 seemed likely. I should have ignored it. I should have focused on the biggest opportunity of my career. But 15 years of conditioning doesn't disappear overnight. I pressed call. Finally, Vivian answered on the first ring. I've been trying to reach you all morning. It was 10:15 a.m. She'd sent one text. Christmas plans have changed. Olivia's friends are joining us this year. 25 people total. 25 people. That's a lot, I said carefully. Which is why I need you here early tomorrow. Cooking, decorating, the works. Olivia's too busy with work. And there it was. I gripped my phone tighter. Mom, I can't. I have a business trip to Miami tomorrow night. A business trip? On Christmas. She laughed, actually laughed. Miami? For what? Some little party you're organizing. A significant client meeting. Natalie, please. We both know your freelance work can wait. This is family. My jaw tightened. I can't cancel this trip. Can't or won't? Both. Silence. Then the guilt trip. Do you know how hard I've worked to make this Christmas special? Olivia has been under so much pressure at work. She needs this celebration. And her friends are very important people. Colleagues, potential clients for your father's business. This isn't just a dinner party. It's networking. Networking for Olivia, for Dad's business, never for me. Mom, I understand, but you're being selfish. You always have been. Olivia gives and gives to this family, and you can't even cook one meal. I closed my eyes. My answer is no. I won't be there tomorrow. I won't be cooking dinner for 25 people. I have a meeting that cannot be rescheduled. What meeting could possibly be more important than your family? A contract worth over $2 million. The line went silent. For a moment I thought maybe she'd heard me. Then she laughed again, dismissive, cruel. $2 million? Natalie, honestly, where do you come up with these fantasies? You plan little corporate parties. You're not some big business mogul. Something cracked inside me. You don't know anything about what I do. I know enough. I know you're 37, unmarried, with no real career. I know you've wasted years on this hobby while your sister built an actual future. And I know that when family needs you, you're never there. I'm going to Miami, I said quietly. You can figure out the dinner without me. If you walk out on this family, don't bother coming back. I should have felt devastated. Instead, I felt relief. Goodbye, Mom. I hung up. Julian appeared in my doorway. You okay? She wanted me to cancel Miami, to cook dinner for 25 people on Christmas Eve. He shook his head. And when you said no? She told me not to bother coming back. Julian walked over and sat down. Natalie, I've known you 9 years. I've seen you negotiate million-dollar contracts, manage crises that would break most people. You're one of the most capable executives I've ever worked with. But when it comes to your family, you become someone else, someone smaller. He paused. This is the moment. You can keep shrinking yourself to fit their expectations, or you can choose your own path. You can't do both. My phone buzzed again. A text from Olivia. Mom's crying. Thanks a lot. You really couldn't put family first for one day? So selfish. I typed back. I have work commitments. Her response came instantly. Work? What work? You plan birthday parties. Get over yourself. I deleted the thread. Book the flight, I told Julian. I'm going to Miami. That night I packed a carry-on at my loft in Midtown Atlanta, the apartment my family had never seen because they'd never asked. I tucked the October issue of Forbes into my bag alongside the contracts. Maybe as armor, maybe as proof that I wasn't crazy. At 8:45 p.m. on December 23rd, my plane lifted off from Hartsfield, Jackson. The flight to Miami takes about 2 hours. I spent most of it reviewing the Sterling contract, making notes, preparing for every possible question Miranda might ask. But somewhere over southern Georgia, I pulled out the magazine. Page 47. A full-page photo of me standing in my office, arms crossed, the Atlanta skyline behind me. Natalie Carrington. The quiet force behind epic events. I read it for the 20th time, then tucked it away. The Fontainebleau was everything I expected. Art Deco elegance, ocean views, a lobby that whispered money. I checked in at 2 a.m., collapsed into the king-sized bed, and slept for 6 hours. When I woke on December 24th, I had 11 new text messages. 4 from Mom, 3 from Olivia, 2 from Dad, 2 from relatives. I didn't read any of them. I showered, dressed in my best charcoal suit, and reviewed my notes one last time. At 10:30 I took an Uber to Sterling's headquarters in Brickell, a glass tower that reflected the December sun like a beacon. Miranda Sterling was in her early 50s, silver-haired, with the sharp eyes of someone who'd built an empire from nothing. She wore a cream blazer and pearl earrings. Her handshake was firm. "Miss Carrington, it's a pleasure to finally meet you." The contract signing took 45 minutes. She reviewed every clause, asked pointed questions about our capacity, our vendor relationships, our contingency protocols. I answered each one with the confidence of someone who'd spent 12 years preparing for this moment. At 11:52 a.m., we both signed contract number SH0241223. A photographer captured the moment. Miranda and me shaking hands, Biscayne Bay glittering behind us. "Welcome to the Sterling family," she said warmly. "I have a feeling this is going to be an exceptional partnership." Then, as her assistant reminded her about her flight, she added, "I'm spending Christmas Eve with some business contacts in Atlanta, the Carringtons. Edward runs a construction supply company. His daughter Olivia is quite impressive. Do you know them?" My throat tightened. "I've heard of them. There's something familiar about you, Miss Carrington. Any relation?" "It's a common name," I said. She nodded, seemingly satisfied, and left. I sat in the empty conference room for a long time after she was gone. She didn't know. The family she was about to visit had spent 15 years dismissing my work as a hobby. And tonight, when she arrived and found no dinner prepared, no caterer hired, no magical spread appearing out of nowhere, what would happen then? I flew back to Atlanta that afternoon, landing at 6:47 p.m., exactly when the Carrington Christmas dinner was supposed to begin. I took an Uber to my apartment, ordered Thai food, and turned off my phone. For the first time in 15 years, I spent Christmas Eve alone. And it was peaceful. What happened at my parents' house I pieced together later from Patricia Whitfield and two other guests. At 5:30, Vivian walked into her kitchen expecting trays of appetizers, a roasting turkey pot simmering on every burner. Instead, she found cold appliances, empty counters, no Natalie. "Edward," she shrieked. My father appeared, adjusting his tie. "Where's the food? Where's Natalie? I thought you said she was handling it." She was. She was supposed to be here hours ago." Olivia descended the stairs in a red cocktail dress. "What's going on? Your sister abandoned us. There's no dinner." The next hour was chaos. Phone calls to every catering company in Atlanta, all booked or closed. A desperate run to the grocery store, the prepared food section picked clean. Edward called in favors with 3 restaurants, all of whom politely declined. By 6 o'clock, when guests began arriving, the Carrington dining table held 2 store-bought rotisserie chickens, 3 bags of pre-mixed salad, a cheese platter from Costco, and dinner rolls still in their plastic packaging. Patricia Whitfield, who'd complimented my stuffed mushrooms 15 years ago, surveyed the scene. "Vivian, is everything all right? You seem flustered." "Everything's fine," my mother said, smile brittle. "We had a little catering snafu. Last-minute changes." At 7:15, Miranda Sterling arrived. She swept into the living room with the calm confidence of someone accustomed to commanding attention. She shook hands with Edward, complimented Vivian's decorations, exchanged pleasantries with Olivia. Then she glanced toward the dining room, where the rotisserie chickens sat in their sad splendor. Her expression remained politely neutral. And then Patricia Whitfield found the LinkedIn post. "Oh my God," Patricia said, loud enough for the group nearby to hear. "Edward, Vivian, come look at this." She held up her phone. A photo of Miranda shaking hands with a woman in a charcoal suit. Caption: "Thrilled to announce our exclusive partnership with Epic Events and the brilliant Natalie Carrington. Looking forward to an incredible 2025. Patricia looked up. "Wait, Natalie Carrington? Isn't that your daughter?" The room went quiet. Vivian stared at the screen, her face draining of color. Edward leaned in, squinting. "What is this? Some kind of mistake?" "That's Natalie," Patricia said, zooming in. "Shaking hands with your guest, in what looks like a very fancy office." Miranda Sterling herself stepped forward, peering at the post. Her expression shifted, recognition, surprise, then something I can only describe as delighted amusement. "Natalie Carrington," she said slowly. "Your daughter is the founder of Epic Events?" Vivian's mouth opened and closed. Ah yes, Natalie is our daughter, but I don't understand. What is Epic Events? Miranda laughed. A genuine warm sound that cut through the tension. Vivian Epic Events is one of the most successful event planning companies in the Southeast. I just signed a $2.5 million contract with them this morning. $2.5 million. The number hung in the air like a grenade. Edward went pale. $2 million? That's more than our company's annual profit. Your daughter has built something remarkable, Miranda continued. I read her profile in Forbes last October. Absolutely inspiring. Her approach to sustainable event design is years ahead of the industry. Forbes. Olivia's voice cracked. Natalie was in Forbes? Patricia was already searching. Oh yes, here it is. October issue. Natalie Carrington. The quiet force behind Epic Events. There's a whole article. She turned the screen so everyone could see. A full-page photo of me in my office looking directly at the camera. Professional. Confident. Successful. Everything my family had convinced themselves I wasn't. More guests drifted over. Soon a crowd had formed, reading excerpts aloud. It says she has 23 employees. Her company did over $4 million in revenue this year. This quote is incredible. I believe in showing up, not showing off. Vivian stood frozen. Why didn't she tell us? She whispered. Perhaps, Miranda said gently. You didn't ask. Patricia spoke next. You know, Vivian, I always wondered about Natalie. She was always in the kitchen, always working, and you barely mentioned her. Whenever I asked, you changed the subject. Other guests nodded. She seems so capable. Remember those stuffed mushrooms she made years ago? I should have known she'd do something with that talent. Harold Whitfield stepped forward. Edward, I had no idea your daughter ran a $4 million company. Why on earth didn't you tell me? We could have done business together. My father had no answer. Olivia clutched her wine glass. She never said anything. She just let us think she was. Let you think what? Miranda asked, one eyebrow raised. That she was unsuccessful? Unimportant? That her work didn't matter? Olivia's mouth snapped shut. Miranda surveyed the room. I met Natalie this morning. She was professional, prepared, and one of the most impressive young executives I've encountered. She never mentioned she was related to you. She paused. I asked if she was related to the Atlanta Carringtons. She said it was a common name. The implication landed hard. Natalie hadn't claimed them. That's why she's not here tonight, Patricia realized. She was in Miami signing this contract, while you expected her to cook for 25 people. Harold added, his tone coolly critical. From where I'm standing, it looks like you've been treating a highly successful businesswoman as household help. And when she finally had an opportunity that mattered, a contract with Miranda's company, you expected her to prioritize dinner rolls over her career. Miranda set down her untouched wine glass. I think I understand now why Natalie didn't mention the connection. Please give her my regards. And do thank her for me. If she hadn't stepped away from this dinner, we might never have met today. She smiled pleasantly. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a flight to Switzerland tomorrow. This evening has been illuminating. She left. The front door clicked shut behind her. The room erupted. Guests clustered in groups, whispering about Forbes articles and million-dollar contracts and the daughter the Carringtons never mentioned. Vivian sank into a chair. Edward retreated to his study, slamming the door. Olivia fled upstairs. I learned the full story on December 26th, when Patricia Whitfield called me directly. Natalie, she said, I owe you an apology. I've known your family for 15 years, and I never once asked what you actually did for a living. That was wrong of me. It's okay, Patricia. You're not the one who should be apologizing. Maybe not. But I want you to know what Miranda said at the party about you being one of the most impressive executives she'd met. Everyone heard it. Everyone knows now. Your parents have a lot of explaining to do. A small, petty part of me felt satisfaction. A larger part just felt tired. Professionally, the momentum was undeniable. By December 30th, I'd confirmed 3 new client meetings, received partnership inquiries from 6 companies, and been contacted by a literary agent. The sterling contract didn't just secure our future. It announced us to the world. But the most surprising development was personal. On December 29th, a handwritten letter arrived at my apartment. Not an email, an actual letter, sent via overnight delivery. The return address was my parents' house. The handwriting was my father's. Dear Natalie, I've spent the last 4 days trying to understand how I missed what was right in front of me. You built a company, a real company with employees and clients and revenue that exceeds my own, and I didn't know because I never asked. I told myself I was a good father. I told myself I supported both my daughters. But the truth is I saw what I expected to see. I expected Olivia to succeed, so I looked for her successes. I expected you to struggle, so that's all I saw. I was wrong, deeply, terribly wrong. I don't expect forgiveness. I haven't earned it. But I want you to know that I see you now. I see what you've accomplished, and I am proud, belatedly, inadequately, but genuinely proud of the woman you've become. If you're willing, I would like the chance to learn about epic events, to understand your work, to know my daughter. Whatever you decide, I will respect it. Your father, Edward. I read the letter 3 times. Then I set it on my kitchen counter and made coffee. Words didn't undo 15 years. But it was a start. On New Year's Eve, I stood at my apartment window, watching fireworks explode over downtown Atlanta. At 11:47 p.m., I picked up my phone and called him. Natalie. He answered on the first ring. Hi, Dad. A long pause. Thank you for calling. I didn't expect. I wasn't sure you would. I almost didn't. But I've been thinking about what comes next. So have I. Dad, I'm willing to try to rebuild something. But not the way things were. I understand. I mean it. No more being the family caterer. No more dismissing my work. If I come to family events, I come as a guest. An equal, not as staff. That's fair. More than fair. And I need you to actually ask about my life. Not assume you know. Ask about my company, my clients, my goals. Be interested. Another pause. Then rougher. I should have been doing that all along. Yes, you should have. The silence stretched between us. 15 years of things left unsaid. But for the first time it didn't feel hostile. Just tired. Your mother is struggling, he said carefully. She's not ready to admit she was wrong. I know. I'd received no letter from Vivian. Just a single brittle text. Happy New Year. Hope you're well. Performative politeness masking resentment. Give her time, Dad said. I've given her 15 years. He had no response. I'll come to dinner next Sunday, I said finally. But I'm coming as a guest. Someone else can cook. I'll order from that Italian place you used to like. A small thing, but a start. After we hung up, I stood at the window and watched the clock tick toward midnight. In a few minutes it would be 2025. A new year. A new chapter. Miranda Sterling's contract sat signed on my desk. Harold Whitfield's proposal was in my inbox. Entrepreneur magazine wanted an interview. My company was poised for its biggest year yet. And my family, the people who'd overlooked me for so long, finally saw me. Not because I'd screamed or fought or demanded, but because I'd walked away and let success speak louder than any argument ever could. There's a quote I love. I don't remember who said it. The best response is massive success. But I don't think of it as revenge. Revenge implies you're still focused on the people who hurt you. What I did wasn't revenge, it was self-respect. I opened my laptop and wrote down my boundaries. I attend family gatherings as a guest, not a servant. I will not accept disrespect disguised as humor. I will not apologize for prioritizing my career. I will be treated as an equal, or I will not participate. I respond to genuine connection and ignore manipulation. My time and energy are valuable. I spend them accordingly. Simple rules, clear expectations, the kind of boundaries I should have set 15 years ago. But here's what I've learned. It's never too late. The moment you decide you deserve better is the moment everything shifts. So that's my story. If you've ever been overlooked, dismissed, or taken for granted by the people who should love you most, I want you to know. Your success doesn't require their approval. It only requires you to bet on yourself. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe and tell me in the comments. Have you ever had to choose yourself over family expectations? I'll read every single one.